All right, Murphy's Law is alive and well. Y'all saw them tinkering with all the technology. I hate that stuff. But anyway, this is not a presentation. I hope you do not think you have to be reverent this morning, because that's not my style at all. It really is a dialogue more than anything else. You know, I've said this a million times, so those of you that heard me speak, you're going to have to indulge me one more time. Most presenters or most people stand in front of you and they do two things. There's really 3 E's, I think, that make a great presentation. Number one, they have to entertain you. If they didn't entertain you at 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning, you'd leave or you'd look at your phone. Matt's looking at his, but anyway, look at your phone, go to sleep. All right, so Matt knows me. He's heard all this stuff before. But anyway, you go to sleep, and they need to energize you. You know, you need to walk out of here and then feel like you can do something great. The problem with that is you go out of here, you go to bed tonight, and you wake up, and you're no better equipped to do anything than you were when you left. So my job really is to equip you. I've gotten to the point that I really will not accept speaking engagements anymore if all I'm going to do is entertain you and energize you. But if I can equip you, if I can give you something concrete that you can go out and you can apply, and it makes your life better, personally, professionally, culturally, socially, spiritually. That's my job, to give you something concrete that you try, and when you do it, your response is, wow, that's better than I was doing it before. Really, that's what I think great presenters do. Motivational speakers, they entertain you, they energize you. Teachers equip you. They make you better prepared. They transfer skills. They impart knowledge. They let you leverage the skills that you've already got. Here's the other thing. People love to be inspired. People love to be inspired. People, if they're equipped, then they want to have the fire in the belly kind of energy to go out and do something with. Today, I want to tell you, this message is for all of you. It's for all of us. I've never given this talk before. I started to sit down and put this together, and it exploded on me. Now, I hate death by PowerPoint. I hate these things. These things are bankrupt. But there's 59 slides today that we're going to do in 40 minutes, so you can figure out how fast we're going to go through them. But they're not normal slides. One time, and Bob Hughes I don't think is here, and he probably doesn't remember this, but just from time to time I would ask Bob Hughes to go to lunch with me just because I respected Bob Hughes' experience, his intelligence, and I knew that I could bounce things that I was struggling with off of Bob, and he had always just come up with an intelligent answer. And so one day, in the middle of a conversation, and Bob, he didn't know a lot about my background like most of you don't, but Bob looked up at me and said, "Where did you come from?" And I would have told him Pluto, but I just said a lot of places. So anyway, nobody really knows my background. Most people will say, "Well, I understand you grew up in Pickens County," which is absolutely untrue. But so today we'll give you a little background on that, but it's not the background that matters. It's what's going to come after the prologue to the front end of this presentation this morning that matters, because it is a story for Greenville. It is a story for Greenville. So let's look at this. Being right is overrated. You know, I've seen more times than not, all of us want to be right. It's what, we want to have the right answer at the table. We want to be the person who's got the best approach. We want to be the individual who is the smartest in the room. And the fact is, I learned a long time ago, I need to start every day with 2 thoughts, and I've written this down and you can see it. And the first thought is, I know I can be wrong. I know I can be wrong. If you'll start every day with, I know I can be wrong, it'll make you value relationships with other people. It'll make you listen better. It'll keep you humble. Now, for the first 40-something years of my life, I probably was on the other side of that coin. My wife, who's here, can vouch for that. But I know I can be wrong. The second thing is, if it's got to be done today, and I had to do it yesterday, I'm going to find a better way to do it today than I did yesterday. We're going to find a better way. I'm not going to wait till the competition or the market or failure pushes me to find a better way. The old saying, if it's broke, don't fix it, it's not true anymore. You need to fix it whether it's broke or not, because somebody out there is going to pass you. Today, what's the ideal solution today that's in a box, got a bow wrapped around it, and you know you've got that locked up? Every day that you walk away from that, the moths are eating that. The moths are eating it. So you have to force yourself to revisit solutions and revisit your assets and your resources, and the things that you bring forth are the things that you're exclusives, because every day they're losing their value because somebody's catching up with you. So I start every day with that thought. So I'm going to start today with being right is overrated, and in the end you'll understand why. Everybody writes these how-to books. Everybody's got an answer. You got all these computers for dummies and how to do this, and I've never seen so many experts. There's more experts in the world than there are people. I hadn't figured that one out. But if I was writing a book, and I've started one, the title of it is going to be What Not to Do. I'm going to write about all the dumb things I did in my life, because wise people learn from experience. But wiser people learn from the experience of the fools who went in front of them. So the book is going to be What Not to Do. So I'm going to tell you, in my own personal life, most of y'all don't know this, here's some things not to do. Number one, do not be born in the city where the atomic bomb was created. All right? Don't do that. I did it. All right? I did it. Where is it? It's Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Now, some of these slides are going to look kind of grainy because they are old. I had to go dig up these photographs and these pictures. Oak Ridge, Tennessee is about 23 miles to the west of Knoxville, right off I-40. Today, Oak Ridge is the home of Oak Ridge National Laboratories, where some of the brightest and smartest scientists and researchers are in the world, and that existed then back in the 40s and the 50s. But Oak Ridge was not a city. It literally was a valley between two mountains. And if you can read this sign, it says in 1943, Oak Ridge was created as the residential center for the Clinton Engineering Works. Now that sounds really innocent, doesn't it? The Clinton Engineering Works, like any other business, like Milliken or like Fluor or like General Electric. Located on the northeast corner of a 59,000-acre reservation acquired by the government, in 1942, the community was designed by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. Oak Ridge reached a peak population of 75,000. On January 1st, 1947, the Atomic Energy Commission assumed control of the community. I was born there in 1955. So the Atomic Energy Commission assumed control of the community of Oak Ridge. In 1959, Oak Ridge became an incorporated municipality. That was 4 years after I was born. Why was Oak Ridge invented? For one reason, to create the atomic bomb. Now, I have left some slides out of here. Listen, when you look back on history, you can't have revisionist history. There's positive and negatives about most things that happen in life. It's all not good. So I've taken some slides. I've actually taken the slides of the two bombs that were created out of this presentation out of respect for people that everybody sees things differently. But the reality is you can't change reality. This is where I was born. This is what it was like. There were three plants. There were X10, Y12, and K25, and the names themselves are imposing enough. All right? So K25 was the facility that produced the enriched uranium that was the centerpiece of America's nuclear energy program. Now I can tell you, I know there's a lot of divided perspectives on nuclear energy, whether it's dangerous, whether it's not. My dad's never heard me speak until this morning. And because he's never seen these slides, and I put them together, he's here, and he worked in this nuclear plant. He wore a monitor, I guess, every day he was there. He's 84. It hadn't killed him yet. It may get him tomorrow, but it hadn't killed him yet. It's all right. You know.
Came out pretty normal.
Yeah, and y'all don't know that's a lie. I ain't nothing normal about me. So it's just not true. So that is the sign outside K25. Now I can remember taking my dad to work. We had one car. We had a 1957 Chrysler. It had an automatic transmission. In the transmission, there were like 5 buttons up here on the left. Ben remembers that. The only problem was that transmission failed about every 49 days. And you'd back out of your driveway and you'd put it in drive, and next Tuesday it'd go. And so we'd get to work every now and then, but we had one car. That's what K25 looked like. Now I'm going to tell you something interesting. I left Oak Ridge when I was 8 years old, and we moved to Memphis, Tennessee. I did not go back to Oak Ridge for 33 years. I was in the aerospace and defense software business, and Boeing Aircraft had a component plant there, and I was the vice president of sales for a Los Angeles-based software company called Western Data Systems. And we had a reason to go to that plant. When I went back, for some reason, I said, I had some time in the afternoon, I'm going to go try to begin to research and learn something about the Atomic Energy Commission and what happened. And what I learned was unbelievably fascinating. That plant right there, when it was built, and I'll show you a sign in a minute, was the largest plant in the world. That building is 1 mile long in a U shape. That was a gaseous diffusion plant. They had tubes running all through that plant. They sent a slurry of, I can't remember what it is, don't tell me, Pop, I'm not even going to say it. But they separated U-235 from U-238 uranium, and U-235 was really at the heart of America's nuclear energy program, including the atomic bomb. But that plant used so much power that it built its own coal-fired power generation plant near that facility, and in 1945, that plant alone and the power facility produced and used more electricity than the entire city of Boston for the year. That's how big that process in that plant was. That was what K25 looked like in operation. Again, today you see something like that, it's fairly imposing. It's actually a little scary. I know I don't sound like it, I've lived all over the world. I've lived in Europe, so you see these plants, they're bigger than you can imagine, and they're a little ominous. Here's the K25 plant. As part of the Manhattan Project, the K25 plant was designed to house work on separating U-235 from U-238 through the gaseous diffusion process. At the time of its construction, it was the largest industrial complex in history. Plant construction began in 1943 and was completed in 1945. Over 25,000 construction personnel worked on the plant. The main building exceeded 44 acres in size. There was over 300 miles of tubing in the plant. The plant took over 5 million bricks to build. That's how big it was. I want to tell you something else. When I went there, there's a little kiosk, it's probably gone now, that overlooked the plant that had films from the 40s that showed the people that worked in the plant. And a lot of them were students or ex-post students living in barracks, young people. And I remember one of them showed a group of females walking out of their barracks that day, and there was some men with clipboards that were standing there and said, listen, is there anything we can do to make your life better while you're here? And they said, well, having some sort of recreation would be nice. They went into work at 7 o'clock, and when they got off at 5 o'clock p.m., the tennis courts were finished. The truth is, the people that were working in that plant before the atomic bomb was dropped, this shows the age of innocence in America. They didn't know what they were doing. If you asked them what their job was, this is what they would tell you. We're just helping our boys win the war. That's what they knew, the age of innocence. We're just helping our boys win the war. That's what K25 looked like from the outside. All right? That's what it looked like. Here's inside K25. Now, the reason I know this is that my father was a maintenance supervisor inside this plant. The aisles and elevators were so large that you could drive full-size trucks throughout the facility, both in the aisles and on the elevators, and transport the vehicles between floors. That's how big it was. Here's what the control rooms look like at K25 to run the facility. Bigger and larger than any nuclear facility you'd see today. And here's the signs that were in the city. When I was born there, you had to go through armed guards and gates to get in the city. And here's the signs that were all throughout the city. What you see here, what you do here, what you hear here, when you leave here, let it stay here. Now that's an interesting upbringing, especially for somebody who likes to talk, but here's some other ones. Who, me? Yes, you. Keep mum about the job. Loose lips sink ships. Hold your tongue, the job's not done. Silence still means security. It was a different day and time. And that's what Oak Ridge, Tennessee was like. This was serious business. There were a couple, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, that were convicted of spying, that they were transporting secrets about the atomic bomb to the Soviet Union, and on June 19, 1953, in Sing Sing prison in New York, they were executed. That's the actual picture of the Los Angeles Times the day after they were executed. So keeping this secret, if you lived in that city, was serious business. Now I want you to look at this. This wasn't before the bomb was dropped in 1945. This was 1953. So it was still very top secret as to what the United States was doing. So that's one. Don't be born in the city where the atomic bomb was created, because you got kind of some unique things you can do and you can't do. Number two, don't be born with a hole in your heart the size of a dime. My sister weighed more than me when she was 2 years old than I did when I went to the first grade. Now that's a true story. If you look at the lower two, the hole in your heart's not an uncommon thing. But a hole in your heart the size of a dime is an uncommon thing. And between the left ventricle and the right ventricle, I had a hole the size of a dime, which caused all the clean blood to get back over where the dirty blood was coming back in through the veins, so my heart had to beat really fast just to get enough clean blood going through my body. Now that's not a very good medical explanation, but it's got to do for this morning. And so as a result, I never grew much, and when I went to the first grade, I weighed 36 pounds. Well, that's a true story. I weighed 36 pounds. And so back then, open heart surgery was somewhat of not a common occurrence like it is today, and so I went to a heart doctor in Knoxville for years, and they debated back and forth, was I going to have heart surgery? And about to the point where I was 12 years old, that was the time it had to get done, and suddenly between the 6th and 7th grades, I grew from 70 pounds to 90 pounds, and lo and behold, the hole had finally healed up. So, but yeah, my sister could beat me up when she was 2, so that's not good. But anyway, that's true. Number 3, don't live in a 900 square foot government house with no insulation. Now, I want you to notice the nice steep pitch on that roof of that house. So it was perfectly flat. Now, these houses were concrete block, one layer of concrete block. And of course, I was like any young man. I had a little toy tool set and airplanes and stuff, and I found out that I could carve out the concrete, the mortar mix between the blocks, and see outside. And so it's a wonder my bedroom didn't collapse, because I'd carved most of them out so I could see what was going on through the cracks. But the only way you got a house, and I didn't know this till a little query on my dad, the only way you got a house was you had to be certified that you were pregnant by the doctor. So my mom and dad lived in an apartment where most of the government workers lived. My mom got pregnant with me. They got a house. That's not the house they got. I could not find the house. I still know the address. It was 116 Princeton Avenue. Now that's 131 Princeton Avenue just up the hill, and that was a deluxe model because it had a porch. You know, I don't think ours did, but that's what they all looked like. So it was cold. There were 4 rooms. There was a kitchen, kind of a big living area and 2 bedrooms. That's all there was. That's 900 square feet. That's what everybody lived in. Now, when you lived in the apartment, you lived on multiple floors. You couldn't move very easily, but you could go anywhere in town on a bus for a dime. And one of Mom and Dad's best friends moved by letting all their stuff down from their 3rd-story window with a rope and move it on the bus for a dime a trip. Now, that's what they did, so that's true. Number 4. Don't go to elementary school where they try you and make you into a foreign diplomat by the time you're 8. Now, most of the people not sure I really speak English. Well, they teach you you had to take foreign language in the 3rd grade. So I had to take French when I was in the 3rd grade. They also had this unique situation where once you got to the 2nd grade, they took the brighter students of the 2nd grade, they took 6 to 8 of them and put them back in the 1st grade, and they were the teacher's aides and taught the 1st grade. So you basically were a big science project for your entire life. First city in America that had fluoride in the water, and they didn't tell you. It could have killed you. You didn't know. I didn't know why I didn't have any cavities till I was 38. That was why. So just an interesting. Now the school didn't look like that when I went there. It was made out of cardboard. But anyway, that's what it looks like now. Number 5, don't join the military when you're 5 years old. And this is true. Now, I cannot find my dog tags. But all school students wore 2 military-style dog tags to school each day in case of nuclear attack. That's true. We did not have tornado drills. We had atomic bomb drills. Now, that's hard to believe, but that's a true story. And I'll find my 2 dog tags. I'm sure I didn't throw them away. They're probably stuck somewhere. But, you know, it's just like you're in the military. Just like you're in the military, wear 2 dog tags. If you die, they put 1 in your mouth. That's the way it worked. And think of a 1st grader wearing 2 dog tags, or a kindergartner wearing 2 dog tags to school every day. That's the way Oak Ridge was. Now, number 6 is kind of humorous. I just threw this in for fun. When you're 5 years old, don't ride a bicycle in the street with your hands off the handlebar when a policeman lives in your apartment building. Now, this is to tell you a little bit about my mom. Some of you know her. I'm not going to say she's tough, but anyway, I was 5. John's laughing because he knows. And I was riding my handlebar out in the street, and Mr. Drannon was a policeman. And he said, "Toby, you're going to get hurt if you keep riding your bicycle that way." I said, "Oh, Mr. Drannon, you don't need to worry about it. I know what I'm doing." My mama heard me. So I went in the apartment to eat dinner that night, and she said, "Toby," she said, "I heard what you said to Mr. Drannon." Said, "You're going to go over there and apologize to him right now." I said, "No, I'm not either, Mama." She said, "I'm telling you, you're going to go apologize to Mr. Drannon." I said, "No way." I said, "I'm not going to do that." I said, "I'm not going to embarrass myself like that. I'm not going over there." So Mama didn't say anything. I thought, she's going to forget about this. So we ate dinner. I sat down on the floor to play. We were in an apartment. All of a sudden, I was enveloped in total darkness. My mom had gone to the linen closet, gotten a blanket, dropped it over me, tied me up in it, and she was pregnant, and she drugged me out of the apartment, across the threshold, into Mr. Drannon's apartment, and untied me when we were in there. And she said, "You're going to apologize to Mr. Drannon." I said, "I'm sorry." You can't make stuff like that up. And so on and so forth. Listen, I could go on, and there's a lot of, and I'll say most of the things I'm going to say today are generally true, generally. My uncle always said there's never been a story worth telling that's not worth embellishing a little bit, but I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible. But it goes on from there. All of us have these stories. So here's the takeaway. Making a great life. This is the part I want you to listen to. Making a great life or a great community or achieving the seemingly impossible, splitting the atom, is not about getting everything right, because everything about my life's not been right. But I'll tell you what it is about. It is about getting together. It's about getting together. Most of the world's greatest achievements required more than a single individual to get the job done. It took a team. It took a team. I don't care how bright you are, how smart you are, how clever you are, you need each other. We need each other. What in the world is that? Somebody kill that. There we go. It took a team. So hey, what about me? I'm special. Why do I have to fit into this team? Why is it important to me to fit into a team? Let me tell you why. Me being right usually means being first, having the best idea or approach, being the only, being the best, being better than you. Me being right sometimes restricts collaboration, dismisses others' ideas as not important, limits creativity, breeds arrogance, puts others off, and it makes me seem unapproachable. I don't ever want that to happen. I'm telling you, everybody deserves respect from the janitor to the king. Don't ever forget that. Everybody deserves respect from the janitor to the king. Makes my idea best and your second best or worse makes your idea wrong. This is something that everybody needs to remember. You can have all the right answers, be the smartest person not just in the room but in the group or in the community or the association or the chamber or the city, it doesn't matter. You can do the right thing and you're right. You got the right answer in the wrong way or at the wrong time, and it's worse than doing nothing at all. So how do we as Greenville's leaders not get it wrong? We may not get it all right, but how do we not get it wrong? Principle number one, have to remember this. Doesn't have to be my way. There's more than one way to get to the end game and achieve the desired results. You may have the best way. Susan and I lived in Europe for a while. I thought I knew how to run a show over there that we did in Europe, and I had a young man come to me and we had a way we did things in America. His name was Cyril Blazer, and so he was the first Dutch national that I let head up a tour in Europe, and we were doing all of IBM's road shows for the AS400 and for the PC and for their software, and we're doing a lot of things. But anyway, so we'd let Americans run these shows up to this point. This was going to be the first one that we let a native Dutch person run it. So he came to me with his show plan as to how he was going to run this tour. And I looked at that and I thought, golly, I don't even know if I can accept that. I can think of two better ways to plan and execute that tour than what Cyril has. And so I said, Cyril, that's just not how we do it. He said, Toby, you're not from here. He said, you don't understand everything about the different nationalities that we have to make presentations to. He said, you have to trust me, this will work. So I said, Cyril, I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to think about that and I'll give you an answer in the morning. I went home and I thought about it and I said, I can think of 2 or 3 better ways to do it, but it's where I formulated my decision-making by the numbers approach. I asked myself these 3 things. Number 1, is it illegal, immoral, and ethical? The answer is no. Number 2, does it violate our company's brand values and brand culture? And the answer was no. Number 3 is, if Cyril is wrong, are the results going to be so catastrophic that they'll be irreparably damage the 5 C's, our company, an important customer, a significant contract, Cyril's character, or Cyril's confidence? And the answer was no. I went back the next day, I said, Cyril, let me tell you something. I'm going to let you do it your way, but you better be right. What do you think Cyril's team did? They absolutely killed themselves to prove that what I thought the 3rd best way would work. They made more money than any tour we'd ever put on the road. because we let them do it their way, and it wasn't going to kill something if they were wrong. So there's more than one way to get to the end game, achieve the desired results. Principle number 2, it really doesn't matter if you're right or if I'm right. Let's just get it right. It doesn't matter where the idea came from. Let's just get it right. Principle number 3, in this community, starting today, we have to major in the 4 C's. I've been saying this for years. Communication, collaboration, cooperation, coordination. If I read to you Beth's got my phone. Beth Davis has my phone. But if I read to you years ago, I began cataloging all the educational, economic development, civic organizations that are in place. Oh my gosh, it's consuming the memory in my iPhone. There's so much overlap and redundancy, and we're all doing good things, but guess what? If we got coordinated, we could do a heck of a lot more. How do we work together effectively? All right, now this is funny, that John, the over's going to win. About 5 or 6 weeks ago, Beth Davis has been my colleague that's kind of watched after me and kept me out of the weeds for about 10 years. And that's a big job. But about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I walked into my office. I noticed, and it's just a plain door, but on the door she had a little sheet protector hanging there, and it had a sign in it, and I realized it was just these, what John would call Tobyisms that I say. And the first one that she hung up there said, be direct. Said be direct. So you want to know how to work together effectively. What I did was, I said, Beth, just take this thing I have, Mantras for Excellence, stick a bunch of these up there and go take photographs of them, and I'm going to use those in my speech because in about 2 minutes I can get across some key points. So these, whoever voted on the over won the bet, I can tell you that. So how do we work together effectively? Tim, what'd you say? You won. So here's the first thing. Don't worry about being the center of attention. There's plenty of sunshine to go around for all of us. It doesn't matter who gets the credit. Don't draw attention, pay attention. Pay attention to those around you and what's going on, okay? And when we're paying attention, we figure out what we're going to do. It's not about us we're trying to do so much, it's crazy. Do less, do it better. Let's focus on what really makes a difference. Do less, do it better. And this say, guess what? The other thing is, let's talk less and do more. I don't need my name in lights. I go to enough meetings. Let's figure out what we're going to do and let's go execute. Larry Bosty wrote the book, Execution, the Discipline of Getting Things Done. He says the reason that America fell behind in terms of competitiveness is not because we don't plan well, we don't do what we say we're going to do. We don't do it what we say we're going to do, when we say we're going to do it. We've got to execute. Talk less, do more. And listen, when you do talk, make sure your words really matter because they do. Words either lift people up, encourage them, or they hurt them. So words matter. So when it comes to people, talk with people, not about them. If you're using their name, they need to be in the room with you. Talk with people, not about them. And when you do talk to them, be direct and be clear. I learned this from San Conduras. I was in a meeting with him one time. He said, listen, stunning clarity. I wrote an article about stunning clarity. Be clear. When you leave room for interpretation and ambiguity, John's going to see it one way, I'm going to see it another. 2 weeks from now, John's going to say I said it this way, I'm going to say I said it that way. 4 weeks from now, John's going to say I said it, I'm going to say I didn't because I'm getting old and forget stuff. Be clear, okay. How do we know if we're getting there? Measure what matters. What did Peter Drucker say? You cannot easily evaluate that which you do not measure. Have a scorecard. Have a way to keep score. And listen, when you keep score, don't listen to people's opinions. In God, I trust. All others, you better bring data, okay? It better be defensible, so bring data. We're not God, bring data. And when you bring the data and you're telling me why that really doesn't mean that, don't believe that. Numbers don't tell the whole story. Numbers don't lie. The numbers, if they're real, they mean something, so don't excuse them away. And if you don't like them, just remember this, you get what you tolerate. If you don't like it, you won't tolerate, you'll do something about it, and what you'll do, you'll either fix it or you'll kill it, all right? The next thing is, when you realize, wow, it didn't work and I'm wrong, don't defend it, deal with it. Most of us, we'll spend the first 7 days after we've done something wrong, it doesn't work, we'll say why our idea was still right. Stop, it's wasted time and effort. You know what the biggest problem in making progress is in the world today? Is delay because we won't admit we're wrong. So don't defend it, deal with it. And when you find out you're wrong, it's real simple. Say, it's my fault, blame me. It's not because my mama spanked me when I was 12 years old and nobody held a gun to my head. I made the choice, nobody made me do it, I did it, it's my fault, blame me. Those phrases are lost in the world today. All right? And no drama. No drama. Let's take all of our energy, get it out of the air, and get it into the effort. Okay? Let's take all of our energy, get it out of there and get it into the effort. And this is huge. I got enough notoriety, I got enough platforms, I got plenty of visibility. I don't do anything I do because it's going to get some airplay. Humility is more important than visibility. It's not about me, it's about you. If there's a nickel on the table and we're not sure whose it is, I just want to push it to your side of the table. Guess what? It doesn't matter. It'll all even out in the wash. Humility is more important than visibility. And here's our signature question. You want to know what endears you to other people? Ask them before you leave any conversation, and you have to mean it. What can I do for you? And when they ask you to do something, you got to do it. Now, I'm probably going to be late, but anyway, you got to do it. What can I do for you? That's our signature question in our company. So One Greenville, how do we get to One Greenville? One vision, one blueprint, one message, one scorecard, one team, but with multiple players. The city, the county, GADC, Upstate Alliance, 10 at the top, the Greenville Chamber, whoever all those players are, our educational institution, our economic development institution, state and local government. There's a lot of players in this, but how do we get to one team? You know Bill Wilhelm? Who knows who Bill Wilhelm was? He was a Clemson baseball coach for years, one of the greatest coaches ever coached. Now, we don't want to be what Bill Wilhelm said. What Bill Wilhelm said was true, but we don't want it to apply to Greenville. Bill Wilhelm's quote, baseball's not a team sport. Baseball's an individual sport, you just happen to play on a team. That's true. Baseball, one man makes the error. It's one person's batting average. One person gets the hit. One person throws somebody out. You may have multiple people to play, but you know who made the mistakes in baseball. It's an individual sport that you play on a team. That's not what we're talking about. It all distills down to one thing, the City Slickers Manifesto. Do y'all know what that is? How many of you ever seen City Slickers? City Slickers is the penultimate business strategy movie of all time. Surely all of y'all know that. You know? You know why? Because Jack Palance, who was the trail boss, kept telling Billy Crystal, who was a midlife crisis, what did he tell Billy? You got to figure out what? The one thing. Jim Collins didn't invent the hedgehog concept. Jack Palance did. You got to figure out the one thing. What's the one thing we're going to be known for? What's the one thing that's going to be our only statement? What's the one thing where we can really make a difference in the world? And the one thing where we absolutely have to agree on is collective leadership. We have migrated from an iconic leadership model, Buck Mickle, Charlie Daniel, Max Heller, Roger Milliken, people that were walked above the face of the earth. Today we operate as a collective leadership model. I look at everybody in this room, most of you I know. I know your leadership ability, I know your capability, I know who you are, I know your families, I know your spouses. Guess what? It is about all of us doing our part in a coordinated, collective fashion to be the leaders that this city needs. Here's the test of leadership. Did we consider all stakeholders when deciding what is important when constructing the scorecard for Greenville? Did we work to secure and appropriately value input from those outside of our everyday line of sight? The disenfranchised and underserved. I want to tell you something, I'm not worried about who's in this room. We see each other every day. We see each other at dinner. We see each other at social events. We see each other at culture events. We see each other at economic development meetings like similar to today. It's the people that aren't in the room I'm concerned about. Because we've got to expand prosperity and quality of life to a greater portion of the population than today. So it means we've got a big job in front of us. Did we project? You know, a lot of us can buy good. I love clothes. I've loved clothes my whole life. But it's one thing to be able to recognize style and to be able to buy good style, and it is for a fashion designer who can project style. A fashion designer can figure out what somebody's going to want to buy 3 years from now because they have to start designing it today. We've got to have the foresight to project, to think ahead, to think about tomorrow. Not what's going to suit us as constituents and as residents of Greenville, but what's going to suit our children and our grandchildren. And what's going to be the ideal environment that we can help pave the path and create for them today. So we have to project. And lastly, the ultimate test. You can have all the charisma in the world. People think great leaders are good presenters or talkers. That's not true. Great leaders set goals. It's one thing. You can be the dullest person on earth. Great leaders, in the right way, set goals and achieve results through others. Great leaders set goals and achieve results through others. So did we achieve the intended result? So let's make sure we eschew exclusivity. What does that word mean? Reject. that we reject exclusivity. Let's don't create a caste system or pecking order where some of us are better than others. It's foolish. But instead, embrace inclusivity. Why? What? How many of you ever read the book, The 1 Minute Manager? Old book, been around for years. Ken Blanchard wrote it, great guy. Here's what he says. People who feel good about themselves produce good results. You know, it doesn't say people who have the right answer, the perfect answer, do it right all the time. I've learned this. As a leader, I've got to learn to tolerate some failure. Not failure that kills the 5 C's, that kills our company, our organization, or a customer, or a contractor, your character, your competence. But short of that, guess what? If you get it wrong, you walk into my office and say, "Why I screwed that up?" I'm going to say, "What'd you learn?" They say, "I learned don't try that again." I said, "That's right. We learned we're one step closer to getting right. Get on out of my office. We're good." You know? So you got to tolerate failure. And if you encourage people that feel good about themselves produce good results. Conclusion. We get it right for the future by getting it together. Greenville's not for me. It's for us, all of us. Thank you.
All right, now I'm going to ask Toby to continue to stand as we have the opportunity to ask a few questions. And if you would just raise your hand and I'll try to recognize, we'll try to get as many questions as we can get in before the session is over. So, that's the first question. Right back here.
John.
Toby, I lived in Oak Ridge, as you know. Was that an A house, a B house, or a C house?
Pop, you'll have to tell me that. Do you
I
know?
don't even remember
What was the difference?
I think that was an A house.
Oh, was it? Well, I can tell it was a real mansion, but now what years were you there?
I was there 71 to 76.
Okay. Yeah, and we left in 1963. I was there from 55 to 63. Moved to Memphis. Any other questions? Anything about, normally I speak on leadership and approaches and failure, and so anything you want to ask. Les?
Toby, what do you see as the biggest obstacle we've got to overcome to achieve that oneness, that collective leadership you talk about?
You know, that's a tough question. I would say, and I probably won't give the right answer. I'll give an answer, Les. I think finding a way to take all the good things that all the various entities and organizations are doing, and let's get in a room and let's eliminate as much of the overlap or the inconsistency and try to take the assets and the resources and the energy that's being invested today. You know, it's like when you're building a house. If you got a general contractor, you got an architect creates a blueprint, and you've got a general contractor that creates a work plan. But that house has all different types of skill sets and resources. There were from carpenters to heating, ventilation, air conditioning equipment, masons that pour the foundation, plumbers that do the plumbing. But you know, they're all working on a single blueprint, but they've all got their name on the portion of that house that is their mission and their core competency. I would say let's just work on the coordination. Let's spend more time together. Let's don't get locked in our own silos, trying to do what we believe we're doing without communicating in an active fashion with those that are partners with us. And let's don't concentrate. One of the things I've learned, and this is in my own personal life, I subscribe to this abundant world approach. Guess what? There's plenty of goodness and plenty of business to go around for all of us. Let's don't worry about where we compete. Let's focus on where we can complement each other. And if we do that, and if we start with that approach, I guarantee you our working relationships will improve, our output increase, and the outcomes will be better.
Toby, you've done something not many people do, which is be able to work overseas. Can you tell us what your biggest takeaway from working and living in Europe was?
Yeah, real simple. The world's not like we think it is. You know, if you've lived in one country your whole life, our vision of what the world is like, we believe the world's like we know it to be in Greenville, South Carolina. The world is way more diverse and way more complex, and a lot of the issues that we're facing in the Middle East today are completely representative of that. If we think we've got some sort of comprehensive picture in our limited exposure, being one person, one data point, in the history of mankind that we understand what the world is and we've got some perspective that's wiser than other people, you got another thought coming. I learned that a lot of issues that I thought what I would call religious issues were really cultural issues. Things that we did in America that didn't work in Europe. And just so have a respect. I've learned this. We have our own preferences. The reason that we don't learn any faster than we do, we say, I don't like these kind of people. I don't like that kind of music. I don't like that kind of food. And so I've adopted this approach that helped me, and this came from living in Europe. Unless it's in legal, immoral, and ethical, decide the things that are eternal in my life, put them over here in a box, put a wall around there, non-negotiable. Everything else, you want to learn in a hurry, have a natural intellectual curiosity for and appreciation for everything. Learn to say yes. As things come at you that pass that three-stage test and they're not things that violate things that really matter to you, learn to say yes. You will be amazed at how rich and broad and expansive and interesting the world is. It's just way more complex than I've realized, and a lot of the things I believe to be true were not true.
A question that's in back here?
Is there an area of interest that perhaps has some good examples or some encouraging examples that we can build on? And the contrary, is there an area that we could work together better on, that we should try harder to maybe project the themes that you're talking about?
Well, I think you're seeing that today. I will say that over the past 18 months, I've seen more coordination and cooperation among the various entities that I think are going to affect positive change in Greenville than I've ever seen before in my life. From Clemson's MBA program to NEXT to the Venture Mentoring Service to what we're going to do with diversity and inclusion over the next 5 years through the Accelerate program, you're starting to see every organization at the table to say, what's our role in this effort? It really doesn't matter whose banner is over the top of it. Yes, this is the Chamber brand, and I've been associated with the Chamber now for 7 or 8 years, and it matters to me. But at the end of the day, it's not about who gets the credit or whose brand's over it. Are we doing something that matters? Are we doing something that is meaningful? And is it changing the lives and making people's lives better around? So a lot of them, I think in terms of entrepreneurship, I think in terms of over the next 5 years, there's a lot more coordination going on in terms of what kind of large companies we can attract or start and keep here. Losing the sealed air. You never want to have a negative experience, but losing the sealed air headquarters, we learned a lot from that. We learned we need to be prepared before that happens next time so that the state, GADC, the Chamber, we've got an off-the-shelf package. We say, wow, we know how to recruit or keep companies like that here. So that level of coordination in terms of economic recruitment and development, minority business enterprise, entrepreneurial activity is beginning to come into being today. So I'd say I'm way more encouraged today than I was 5 years ago, no question.
Question on the left.
Toby, you had mentioned in your presentation about the 5 C's. How do you integrate that in your company, especially as new people that you're bringing on?
Well, I think they'll tell you I hope I live that. If I don't live that, you don't have to worry about walking to my office and making a mistake and it didn't kill the 5 C's. I'm not going to slap you about the head and shoulders. That's just not going to happen. I call it takes a while for people to believe it. Our engineers are just now starting to believe that they've got that level of authority and empowerment. You have to prove it. I say good leadership creates doesn't matter whether it's work or related. Remember this, good leadership creates an environment that's the perfect balance of empowerment and accountability. Empowerment with no accountability is anarchy. Everybody just does what they want to. There's no consequences. But accountability with no true authority or empowerment is paralysis. If you say, oh, I'm going to give Robert the authority to do that, you're accountable for these metrics, but I don't let him make the choices within those guardrails to be successful, then he's going to sit around and wait and say, I can't do that because I got to get Toby's approval. You have to work with people over a period of time. They really understand that empowerment box, what I call the empowerment box, is real. In the empowerment box, it's got our customers, our company, confidence, character, and whatever the other one is. I forgot. I've talked too much. Outside of that box, confidence, outside the box, and inside the box, it's all colored in. Any decisions you make, right or wrong, you got my equal support. As long as it doesn't catastrophically, irreparably damage the 5 C's, you can do it completely dumb. I'm going to say, that's all right. What'd you learn? It's not, it's repairable. It's fixable. But it takes time for people to believe that you mean that, so you have to live it.
Question in the
curriculum there and what you had plans for contributing to the economic development?
Well, that's a great question, and that's one I can answer absolutely unequivocally. I wrote an article in 2009, got published in 2012 in the Upstate Business Journal. We'll quit. I know y'all got to go to work maybe. But 2012, and it was called The Case for a Hardwired Connection Between Education and Commerce. And I wrote it in 2009 when our unemployment rate was 12.4%, and we literally had tens of thousands of advanced manufacturing jobs in the automotive supply chain going unfilled. And so we were like two ships passing in the night. We had all of these jobs that needed certain certifications and training and degrees and skills, and we had education that was still operating on a push model. We're going to produce so many engineers and so many scientists and so many nurses and so many attorneys and so many doctors, but with no real hard connection to what South Carolina's needs were going to be in the job market. And I said, look, let's do what manufacturing has done. Manufacturing used to make everything to stock and stick it on the shelves and hope somebody bought it. Then they went to a demand pull model where we begin to get forecast in at a more rapid rate, or custom orders. Every BMW is done what? It's made to order. They don't produce a BMW at that plant until they get an order, either from a person that comes through a dealership or the dealer orders. They don't make anything to stock. They're making to demand. That BMW is going to get paid for by somebody if it gets made on that plant. That's where we needed to head with education. So we went out and said, what are the areas of industry, those industry clusters that have the greatest opportunity within our region, within the upstate of South Carolina, to be the ones that produce the most jobs and have the most demand over the next 20 years. Now there's 6 or 7 of them. If you look at most of the economic development organizations, they've all agreed on them. But we picked 4. We said life sciences, no questions. Greenville Health System is already the 13th largest health systems in the public health system in the United States. Energy of all forms, information technology, and mobility, aviation, aerospace, and automotive, which already got 2 supply chains in South Carolina because of Boeing and BMW, and all the Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3 suppliers. So we looked at where momentum already existed and then went backwards and said, let's expose our young people at an earlier age to real-life applications in areas that if they like it, when they get out of school, there's likely to be an opportunity waiting for them. Now here's what parents ask, well, what if my child goes to next high school and they find out they don't like mobility, aviation, aerospace, and automotive. They don't like life sciences. They don't like energy. They don't like information technology. They're still better off. You know why? Because they've eliminated what they don't want to do. You know, so they're not going to go to college and waste your money. All right? Because they know what they don't want to do. That's how. Anything else?
That's great. That's unfortunately, we're out of time for questions. I'm going to ask Toby to join me on the stage here so that we can show our appreciation for Toby's presentation this morning. You know, in the upstate we have great natural resources, clean water, clean air, beautiful landscape. But our greatest natural resource is our human capital, our people. And to me, the best of that human capital is Toby Stansell. It's a privilege to be able to present this book to him. This is Reimagining Greenville by John Boyanowski and Mayor Knox White. And Toby, I just want to thank you for sharing your wisdom with us and for your friendship. We appreciate it so much.
Same. Thank you.